live from Brooklyn. It's the longest running 9 Inch Nails fan podcast. Hi. I'm Azrael.
I'm Nine.
Yeah.
I'm Piggy.
Yeah. Anyways, it was a good concert.
Yeah.
Live from Brooklyn. It's Ask an Engineer.
Hi, everybody.
We're early for our late broadcast.
You know, whatever. It's been a lot of holidays.
Whatever,
a lot
man.
of stuff's going on. We're back doing the live show. We're
All sorts of things going on.
Yeah.
Big anniversary for me.
Oh.
Yeah, 21 years ago, I pressed the button and started a site called Hackaday.
That's amazing.
21 years ago to the day.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So that's kind of, well, there's debate about it, but I'm the guy who was working on it, so I think I could say it's like now, it's nowish.
Okay.
Logo's still in there, people still wear the logo on the shirt to get it tattooed on their bodies.
People have.
Yeah.
It's a good logo.
Yeah. There's also big news, everybody. Arduino was sold to the highest Qualcomm bidder. Qualcomm bought Arduino on the show until we talked about it a little bit. A little bit on Asking in Germany, talk about it a little bit. And we have things like here's them a while ago. This is the entire Arduino team. I don't think there's any photo of them all together because one of them, they didn't make it. Owl said, "I salute you, adventurers," and then I salute you twice, the ones who aren't going to make it back. So Jen Luca didn't make it.
Daniela,
yeah. So that's it was in this picture. So use Nano Banana and get rid of them later.
Okay.
Anyways, so we have some nostalgia and more. There was a time when we were making Arduinos in the U.S. and all that. But this big news, this is the end of a story. Maybe the beginning of another. Arduino joins Qualcomm. That means, they're acquired. So anyways, we'll talk about that because people are asking about it. So we'll just do that there.
Yeah.
Other things we're going to do, the code is Qualcomm because someone has to make money off all that code that Qualcomm got, So we didn't get it. We didn't get a qual check. So anywho, use it to support a venture capital free open source company. We do not make our money licensing our patents to others. That was one of the bits of feedback about Qualcomm. So let's see what happens if we use it as our discount code. We are going to do some INMPI brought to you by DigiKey. This week's it's Sensorion. Don't forget that the chat, adafruit.it/Discord, is where you can do a bunch of chattering. And we're going to do a bunch of new products off from the new product section, adafruit.com/new. And a bunch of other stuff. All that and more on, you guessed it, Ask an Engineer.
Yay!
We're still standing. So let's quickly take care of some bills to pay for some skills.
There's freebies and stuff. Don't forget. We don't have the insert, but you get free stuff.
And code is welcome. Okay. And then, I mentioned the Hackaday thing. This is, there's like web blog detritus on Engadget. If you look close, you can see my post from 21 years ago. But it's hard to find because the site has been refactored and regurgitated a million times. I think there's something called bending spoons that everything's getting rolled up into. Anywho, you could see that's it there. So, site's still going.
It's a great site.
Maybe. Depends who you ask.
I liked it.
There you go.
I used to read it.
So let's hop right in. You want to do NPI, then we'll get to products?
Let's do NPI, get over with, and I'll get over with it, but let's have dessert first, and then we'll do new products, and we can spend whatever time we have left over.
There's this place. So we live in Park Slope. There's this place called Junior's, and I had a half a cheesecake.
I just had a big roast beef sandwich with mashed potatoes.
What happened was when you don't eat and you're just bringing toddler to school, doing all these things. And then eventually it's I need to eat. And so I didn't brundle fly it, those who know. But I did kind of just eat it really fast because it's soft and you could just eat it. The
turkey was really good. I will say, we actually, look, I think I can say it. I think Junior's is better than...
You're 7 months pregnant. You can say whatever you want.
8. It's close. I like Junior's more than I like Second Avenue Deli.
Yeah. We were talking about
and
this.
More than Cats.
Junior's is moist, while Second Avenue Deli
this roast beef is so
Cats
moist.
is dry, which is fine. Sometimes you want the dryness of this, but this.
But it was good, and they're in Brooklyn, which is really nice. So it's you can we got it delivered because we were super busy today, and we'll also eventually go there. But and then of course the menu is enormous, and they have everything. But yeah,
they do. Anyways,
enough about food.
More tips and tricks on eating well in Park Slope. Let's go right to the fun. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay.
On NPI.
NPI brought to you by DigiKey and Adafruit. Thank you, DigiKey. Every single week, Adafruit and DigiKey bring you the newest product introduction. This week, it's Sensorion, the sensor company. Lady Ada, what is this week's Eye on NPI?
Glad you asked. This week's Eye on NPI is the STCC4. This is a new CO2 sensor, a carbon dioxide sensor from Sensorion. We love Sensorion. We've covered them quite a bit. This one, the STC CO2 sensor, is unbelievably small, only about 3 by 4 by 1.2 millimeters, easily pick and place, low cost, uses thermal conductivity to measure CO2. Pretty good accuracy, plus or minus 100 ppm. It's calibrated in factory, good for 400 to 5,000 ppm. So, basically for indoor usage. It's not designed for like scientific CO2 measurements, but it's excellent if you're like, hey, I want to measure the CO2 levels of my house or my school or my office. This builds off of Sensorion's, decades-long history in making amazing high-quality gas and air quality sensors. We've covered, every time they come up with a new sensor, we cover it because they're all like really good and people really like them. The SCD 40 and 41 was their acoustic, I want to say like thermoacoustic CO2 sensors, which, improved on the size and price of the SCD30, the NDIR, which is still like a very classic sensor people use. And of course, their gas sensors and they're all environmental sensors. So, as I mentioned, the sensor that people have used for a really long time and we stock a breakout for, the SCD30, uses NDIR, like non-dispersive infrared light measurements to do CO2 measurements. And this one is good for scientific. It'll actually measure like CO2 itself. They're, not inexpensive. They're like, about $30 a piece on DigiKey. But they're through-hole solderable. It uses I2C. They're like really easy to use. There's tons of libraries. But they're really big. Like this is a very big sensor. And so Sensorion followed up only a couple of years ago with the SCD4X series, which you see kind of in the middle right there. And, what's interesting is CO2 sensing for environment. It's been used by HVAC people for a long time to keep track of, whether there's good air circulation. But basically, in 2020, CO2 became a way of measuring how good air circulation was for the avoidance of COVID transmission, because it seemed to be well correlated. If you had a lot of good fresh air coming in, the risk of transmission was reduced. And so schools and homes and offices started caring a lot about CO2 measurements. And Sensorion happened to be like right there with really good sensors. And, even though, we're not dealing with the same level of COVID transmission as we were before,
or who knows?
Or who knows? People still do take CO2 measurements very seriously. First off, I definitely notice if CO2 is high in my room. Well, now I can measure it. Once it gets over 1,000, I'm like, oh, it's a little stuffy. And I'm like, right, let's open a window. But people may not notice it. I've had people take our sensors and do projects and they're like, whoa, I didn't realize that in my basement where I work, I do electronics, it gets up to like 2,000, 3,000 ppm. And I'm like, yeah, you need to work on your air circulation. It's stuffy and you may not even realize it. So the more less expensive CO2 sensors, the better, because I think it does make a really big impact on people and animal health. Anyways, so the SCCC is much, much, much smaller. It's not going to be the most precise, like it does use a different way of measurement, but it's definitely better than the equivalent CO2, the ECO2 sensors, which basically guess based on gas measurements using like MEMS heaters. So this their technique that they're doing is going to be a lot better. It'll actually get true CO2 measurements. However, it does expect you to have kind of classic air composition. Like it's not going to work in a scientific environment where the composition of the air, with CO2 and nitrogen and oxygen is out of kind of the standard composition that you'd expect for like human environment, right? So if you're doing that kind of scientific measurements, get the SCD30. Also, you do need to, like every CO2 sensor, it does have to be exposed once in a while to 400 ppm CO2, like outdoor air. It also does have a warm up of a couple hours. So, I mean, just like, there's an automatic self-calibration, which does expect, to correct for drift, you will need to have 400 ppm CO2. It basically means you have to open the window or door once in a while. Measurements are, right, so you can measure 400 to 5,000 ppm. That's basically indoor. I talked about the thermal conductivity thing. It's expecting 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and then like 1% argon in order to measure the CO2 concentration. So like I said, it's for indoor, outdoor use in homes, offices, schools, etc. One thing that will greatly improve the quality of the readings, and the SCD30 has a temperature and humidity sensor built into it, and so does the SEN66, used for compensation. The SDCC, to keep it inexpensive, does not contain the temperature humidity sensor that would be used to basically calibrate against the ambient air temperature humidity. So what you can do is there's 2 pins that have like a peripheral I2C connectivity, and you can connect an SHT 40, 41, 45. I think the 40 is plenty good, and it's very inexpensive. It's like $1 or $2. And it will automatically read the measurements from that sensor because they're both from the same company and knows the setup for it. And you can still read the temperature humidity through the STCC4. What's nice is that you don't have to like do the thing where you write the temperature humidity to the sensor. The sensor will like read those values when it feels like, oh, I need to recalibrate. So that's kind of nice. But you do have to buy those as a separate component. Fairly low power, in active mode, it's about 4 milliamps. But on average, given that you're only sampling every 10 seconds or so, it's about 500 microamps. Sleep mode is 1 microamp. You can measure, you can power it from 3 to 5 volts, is the VDD at the top there, and ditto for I2C. However, because if you're using the SHT4X as like the peripheral temperature humidity, and those are limited to 3.3, I would just say run the whole thing off of 3.3. You can. As people who've used Sensorion sensors are used to, there is I2C commands that you have to use to put it into mode. They do have an Arduino driver. They also have I think Python and like embedded C. But also the commands are very simple. It's not like there's some weird binary blob. You run the command, you read the data. I believe there's a CRC or something as well, and you get the results out. So they do document the entire command set. They can also get started very easily with the ready-to-go drivers. Available from DigiKey, you can also get an eval kit for the CO2 sensor. What I like about this is like, boy, doesn't it look like an Adafruit sensor? Yeah, it's got the 4 mounting holes and the STEM QT slash I2C, quick connector. I don't think they do any level shifting on there. They do have an SHT 40 or 41, as well as the SCC 4 sensor and the breakout pads. So this is like ready to go instantly, and it's not too expensive. That's available from DigiKey. But also, I designed a breakout board as well that'll come out with soon. So you can see the draft here. I added an SHT 41, but maybe I'll go with a 40. And then you can see the sensor at the bottom. They're very small, very compact, pick and placeable sensor. So I think this will be great for wearables or indoor monitoring. You don't have that big chunky SCD30 or the SCD4 that takes up a lot of space. This can fit pretty much any enclosure. And best of all, it's in stock and at a really good price. It's like, what, $5? Like maybe you can.
It's a good price.
$6 a piece. And you can buy it as little as quantity 1 from DigiKey right now.
And that is Sensorion with the latest INPI from DigiKey and Adafruit. See y'all next week. Thanks, DigiKey.
On NPI.
Alrighty, don't forget the code is Qualcomm. I had to say I must be on my way, so buy me beer, whiskey, so I'm going far away.
Wait, Qualcomm.
Yeah, so that's that, and we're gonna jump right into new products, and then we'll just riff on on what's going on in open source hardware and acquisition news and more until we have to
go get it.
So the babysitter leaves. Okay. Let's jump to new products. Ready?
Yeah.
All right, new products. Let's just go right to the source here.
Let's go. Okay, so just scroll down because it's been
it's
been a while,
sure
but that's okay.
Probably want to see us too.
What?
No, I guess we'll just go
voiceover.
Yeah.
Okay, so scroll down.
Yeah.
And we'll go scroll, keep going. Go. Stop. Okay, so let's click on these SHE cables. Okay, so we had a couple requests for longer versions of the. Oh, can I use it?
Yeah, do you want to scroll? Yeah. Watch out, there's a bunch of buttons that go crazy on this thing.
Okay, so we stocked these shorter JST SH cables, which have a JST SH 3-pin, and then socket connectors. Now we have them in a slightly longer 200 millimeter format. This was requested, and I'm like, yeah, you got a point there. I like the short ones, but long ones are good too. These are kind of intended to use with our like UPDI friend, as like a little breakout cable, so you can like plug it in, or with something like the Sparkle Motion. Basically some boards that I didn't put a big JST PH on. I put a JST SH 1 millimeter pitch connector. You can use them as a Pico debug probe, but the colors are not going to be what you normally expect because red and black, like ground is red and black is data. But we do have them in stock. We also now have plug versions as well. I might as well just get to these. And these, I think, are going to be best used for when you want to use these NeoPixel breakouts. We did have a request. People are like, I want to like have Sobel NeoPixels that have cables. And I'm like, well, they're not going to be cheap, but you can use these to connect. And people are like, well, I want to chain them. Well, that's when you would use these plug cables. So we have those in stock now as well. Let's go back to the front page. I did a lot of clicking. Okay. Next is conductive rubber cord. We had a request. We have this in 1 meter long, and some people are like, can we get this in 3 meter long? Use these little clippies, these alligator clips, and a resistor to create a resistor divider. These have a resistance that does change. It's not like perfectly linear, and as it kind of goes back to shape, it will change a little bit. But basically, you can use this as a stretch sensor. It's very inexpensive, and it works fairly well, and it's very rubbery. So this is just a conductive cord that you can turn into an analog sensor. We had a star of the show, which already sold out, but we're going to get more made soon. This is a e-ink bonnet for the any Raspberry Pi or Raspberry Pi compatible, anything with this 2x20 header. You can see in the bottom, there is a 2x20 connector that you can plug in. And it gives you access. It actually gives you a couple things. So the main thing is this circuitry here lets you support classic e-ink displays. So almost all e-ink displays, not the 6-color ones, but like the monochrome, the tricolor, quad color, they have this standard 24-pin connector. And now you can use them directly with the Raspberry Pi. I would recommend getting one of our extender cables because you would get a lot of space. You can mount this anywhere, and then you can use our Python code to easily draw any image you want on to the display. You can use dithering because you've got access to all the graphics tools that you would on a Raspberry Pi. And we had a little bit of space left over. So in addition to having like the breakout for all the pads, there's 2 buttons, 5 and 6, so you can like change programs. There's a switch to change the resistance. By default, I think 0.5 is what like almost all panels use, but some want 3 ohms. Just flick it over. A JST PH connector with power, ground, and digital 12. You can like connect NeoPixels or whatever. And a speaker, as well as Stemma QT. And the reason I put an I2S speaker on is I figure if you have an e-ink display, you might want to have audio alerts. Even though it's not going to be maybe the loudest speaker, it's a like 3 watt max. You could like have some notifications and stuff, And you still have GPIO you can connect to here if you want buttons, or you want to connect I2C devices over the STEM QT. So I think it'll be a good, like I see a lot of people making pretty cool e-ink projects. I think you could power many interesting e-ink projects with this bonnet. And like I said, it works with any 24-pin e-paper display. And we sell the raw displays as well in the shop. Actually, maybe we'll see, I think. Yeah, one of our bare displays. So we stock, from 2.13 up to 7.5 inch, monochrome and tricolor displays. All these will work. And we have Python drivers for all of them. Okay, so next up, we've got this beautiful snap-on enclosure for the Fruit Jam. If you have a Fruit Jam, also the guide came out for this. No, Pedro published it. These are like beautiful black 3D printed resin cases with there's a little slide switch for on-off. This really cool, like ultra thin diffused area for the NeoPixels. Looks great. And tabs for all the buttons. People really like this. And then slots for the USB ports and for the headphone jack on the right. So you can see these are all the different ports you might need. And then the DVI port, USB, micro SD, and the headphone jack. So pick that up if you have a Fruit Jam and you want to protect it. We also have a breakout for the SPA 06003. This is a temperature and pressure sensor. It's kind of a low-cost sensor. It's not going to be as good as the BMP series, which we stock, the BMP 280 and 390 and 388 and 5, whatever. But I do see this sensor in a lot of DIY quadcopter builds, and I was like, well, it's not a big deal to stock it. So I made a little breakout for it, and we have Arduino and Python and CircuitPython code. So you can read the temperature and pressure from it. Again, not as good as the BMP sensors, but it's a little less expensive. Also have a really nice I2S DAC built on the PCM 5122. This I2S, this digital DAC chip, is used on, I think, the Hi-Fi Berry and some other, Raspberry Pi bonnets and stuff. But it's also, what I really like about this I2S DAC is it's, digital in. So you've got down here, power ground, and then the I2S, W select, D in, B clock. M clock is optional. You do not need to give it a M clock signal, which means it works great with any microcontroller that does I2S because a lot of them don't generate M clock. It has a digital mute and line out left and right stereo. And you don't need to use it. You don't have to configure it. Like if you want, you can use it in a hardware mode where you just give it I2S and audio comes out. And you can use some of these pins to set the gain, but for the, in the format, but for the most part, it's like plug and play. Like you just give it, power, ground, and 3 digital signals, and audio just starts piping out. And then you use mute to do a digital mute. But if you want to have configuration like volume, and I think like there's some digital like DSP filter stuff inside, and soft mute, and other like filters and de-emphasis, and changing the like offset gain or whatever, there's I2C and SPI available, and we wrote drivers for again Arduino and Python / CircuitPython if you want to use the control pins in order to do software control of the I2S decoding. But like I said, I really like it that it's a really high quality I2S amp, and it works with everything because you don't need to do the configuration. It works like out of the box, like in hardware mode. And this cable, we accidentally bought this cable. And I bought HDMI cables, and they were supposed to come with HDMI connectors. They didn't. My loss is your gain. This is a really high quality cable, and it's $1. And it's a nice skinny cable with good shielding, twisted pairs, 19 conductors. Go to town. The STM32F405 feather is back, and the price is down to being something reasonable because during the part shortage, we had to increase the price because the cost of chips went up like $10 a piece or more. I think it was $15 a piece for a moment. The price came back down to something reasonable. I think they're about $5 a piece now again. So we now have the feather at the original price, like $24.95, and which is awesome. And we're remaking it One thing that changed is the polarity of the the SD card detect changed. And I don't remember, something changed with the part number and it wasn't noticed. Or like the one that we have now is not the same as the one we originally used. So just be aware if you're checking for SD detect, it's like active low instead of active high now. Otherwise everything else is identical. It's otherwise drop-in replaceable, and it's going to be bagged. So we actually sold through. We'll have more. The Raspberry Pi M2 compact hat. This one, the thing that's nice about it is you can put it inside the Raspberry Pi case, and there's space for the fan here. So that's what makes this nice. You can't use like the full, 2080 size. I think you can only use like the 2022. I don't know exactly the 2030 size. But to be honest, a lot of little SSD drives come in this package size. And you can use it with a cooling case, which people really like. So you can use it for adding lots of storage. We talked about these cables. Had a couple of requests for 100 packs for the mini nano NeoPixels. These are little 4-pin NeoPixels, which just have power ground, data in, data out, 2mm by 2mm size. And if you want them for less, for a pack of 100. The Raspberry Pi 500 Plus, we are now stocking. So this is cool. It's like a mechanical keyboard style. So you can remove these use, I think, Gateron keys, and you can, of course, put your own custom keycaps on. And there's NeoPixels underneath. It's kind of like a souped up version of the Pi 500. Also has NVMe storage. I think there's like an SSD slot inside. And using like their own 256 gigabyte SSD. And we're stocking only the American regional version. So I can check that out. And we'll get more of those soon. Cool, because like it's got a RP2040 inside that you can run KMK or QMK on. The MyOS sensor we've stocked for a while, now has been released as version 2. This has 3 contacts, which is kind of nice. The reference and then 2 signals. It doesn't come with the disposable contacts, so don't forget to buy the EMG electrodes if you don't stock those, or go to your local pharmacy. They sell them in packs of 50 or 100, but I like the ones that we've got. And you stick them on, and then you can get analog signal out very easily. They've got great documentation, libraries, example codes, so check them out. I really like the MyOS sensor. I feel like they really solved the muscle sensor problem for people who want to do that kind of measurement for assistive tech, or just for like cool sensor projects. We also have a new version of the ESP S2 Seola. Now comes with 2 micro USB ports. Used to only come with 1, and you'd have to wire up the secondary native USB with the socket. You don't have to do that anymore. It comes with the 2 on it already. Yay! It's got also 8 megabytes of flash and 2 megabytes of PS RAM. It used to be, I think, 4 and 2. Now it's 8 and 2, which is great. So overall, just a nice improvement. It's pretty much drop-in, but like I said, there's now native USB and a debugging UART, so you can, if you're you don't have to constantly put it to bootloader mode if you're wanting to program it via Arduino or CircuitPython or Platform.io. And then finally, we have another new sensor. This is the STHS34PF80. Why they name it like that, I don't know. But this sensor it's basically like a passive IR sensor, very similar to these PIR sensors, except it doesn't need a lens. It's a lensless design. So it can measure presence and motion up to 4 meters away, of people, of animals, as long as they're fairly large. It also has a built-in temperature monitor for local, and can measure presence. So one thing about PIR sensors is they tend to only measure motion. This can measure both presence and motion. It's kind of nice. So it's you don't have to wave your hand in front of it to reactivate it. And it doesn't have timeout. It has I2C, so you don't have to worry about, PIR sensors usually only give you a digital signal, and it's not in depth. It just says, was there motion in the last 30 seconds? This will give you much more detailed information. So This sensor, I have Arduino library, CircuitPython, and Python coming soon. So that's all the products.
Good
the
work.
Last few weeks.
Wow, and that is new products. You did it.
New.
Okay, don't forget the code is, it's going to be Qualcomm this week because Arduino is now owned by Qualcomm.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about this because that was news, and we're just going to run down the clock until exactly...
I tried to get that. There's a lot of products.
There's a lot of products.
It's been like 3 weeks since we did new products.
Yeah, so I'll put this, I put some stuff in the chat. So
yeah.
Just to those who know, Arduino, open source hardware icon over the years kind of said, this is the example. Look, you can have hardware, give out the schematics and source, and look at this big ecosystem. Qualcomm purchased them, undisclosed amount this time, and we'll figure out later. Arduino had $54 million in funding. And like the big, it was like this number that I think everyone at Qualcomm was obsessed with. It's like, we need developers to compete with NVIDIA. So
obviously this is NVIDIA. Look, NVIDIA is like
so
the big
they think that
gorilla.
Having all of the Arduino developers, which have moved on, and this number is like, oh, the IDE downloads. Well, there's a lot of ESP32 downloads from that, not straight up. So it's an interesting thing that's what they're like, we have to get developers somehow. So they're going to come here. They're going to come with Arduino into this Dragonwing world and AI world. We'll see. So it could work.
Edge Impulse, so maybe there's.
It could work out. The ways it could work out, though. So I think we kind of know. I think we have like knowledge in this industry, or sort of. We do stuff.
Contacts, yeah.
Yeah, there is a really great way to bring open source into an organization like Qualcomm. Change the whole vibe of them being, known as the licensing patent trolley thing. They're in trouble. So here's the thing: when you look up now, now that Arduino is part of a publicly held company like Qualcomm, so I have this like alert thing. So I'm getting Qualcomm news. So you can't really tell what you're going to get. So I'm like, oh, let me find out if there's any like filings or anything. Well, they have a jet. And then when we were in the chat, I took a screenshot. By the way, everyone, Arduino isn't even open source 100% to start. So they should be a little bit more, they're like, hey, whatever's open source will be clearly documented as open source, and we'll make sure it's always open source, and we'll do things like certify it with OSHWA, which we're not doing. But they could just be very clear about what's open source because they've been taking stuff down. So this is why I think people are getting a little weird. And I did try to buy one of the queues. I did get it eventually. It didn't work initially, and then I think their site was having some problems. And then like they're in the news just like every other company because they're getting sued, or there's going to be class action because the people that are not Indian and not Chinese are saying it's not fair at Qualcomm. And this happens at other companies too. So this is like a little bit of a distraction for those of us who are like, hey, we want to do more hardware and electronics. So now you have this like publicly held company and you have Arduino. They're saying it's a wholly owned subsidiary. We'll see what that is. I sent over a bunch of questions to a journalist. I asked questions over the months to Qualcomm because this was like kind of obvious that it was happening. Like anyone in electronics kind of knew. I don't know that many people though. So like, what did you think about when you heard this? Like, what was the first like wave of like, rare?
I mean, acquisitions rarely work out that great for the community.
They do. I mean, it's always possible for it to work out. Yeah, it's always possible for it to work out, but it does.
But it rarely does.
That is true.
I think that it's really good that Arduino did do a lot of stuff that's open source, so that like people aren't dependent. And I told our team this. It's like we're not dependent on Arduino. Like we use the IDE, but the IDE is free to distribute. So we, it would be great if it could continued to be developed. May or may not. And
why don't you keep talking? I gotta go take care of this.
You gotta take care. Okay. And
then why don't you keep talking? Yeah, I'll come back.
Okay, cool.
All right, you just keep talking about it.
Okay. Hopefully this doesn't like blow up in my face.
No, it'll be fine.
Yeah, take your mic. It's good that the designs that they've got are open source. They can be imported to, KiCad. People are making Arduino Uno compatibles already and Leonardo compatibles and like, Pro Micros and whatever. So there's going to be always a community that can make boards that have, available chips. So that hardware doesn't have to, die off. I mean, I know that, even though like the ADK wasn't made I had a couple projects that used 80K boards. That hasn't been made in like decades, but for a while I could still get boards because like some other companies were making them. It's like a Mega with a USB chip basically built into it. So I think that's good. I think that there's also like a bigger community of companies making Arduino compatibles now, which is really nice. Like it isn't just Arduino pushing new hardware, new software out. We make stuff, SparkFun makes stuff, Scene makes stuff, Waveshare makes stuff. Random vendors on Amazon and AliExpress and stuff. They also make compatibles, and they make software and modules. So I think that's one good thing about it. One thing I hear a lot is companies that have IoT products. Eventually, the company goes under, and then your IoT product, like the server, like somebody unplugged it, or they forgot to renew the DNS certificate, and then your IoT device stops working. So I think people who are dependent on cloud services from Arduino might want to just double check, like, hey, do you have a backup plan in case the Arduino cloud goes down? But thankfully, like the Arduino IDE and the software and the hardware it doesn't have like a ping back to some server. Even if it's a free license, there's no like requirement for the server to be up. It's easy to add board support package JSONs to the configuration preferences of the IDE, and so people can come up with new boards and new board support packages for chips, and whether or not Arduino approves them for inclusion into the IDE proper, there's always a way to manually add that support. I'm just talking about like there's hardware, software.
They kind of mentioned that even in the thing. They're like, don't worry, silicon vendors are gonna, they're all the silicon community. It sounds great, acquisition day. But
yeah. I think it's like I'm cautiously optimistic, but the only thing I warn people is like cloud services sometimes go down. So if you're dependent on Arduino Cloud, just make sure you have a backup plan.
Well, if Qualcomm really wants to take on NVIDIA and open source is the way they're going to do it, OpenAI kind of talks about that. They may have to at some point because they talked about open source. They could develop. So this is a problem. So after Arduino got $54 million, they did less open source each year.
Yeah.
They had less staff doing open source. So with all the billions of dollars of resources that Qualcomm has, they could put a lot of resources and effort behind this idea that more people could be developers, and more developers could be developing for these AI things that they want to do. And Arduino could be the way to do it. But in practice, did they have someone who was going to see this all the way through? Is there someone who's going to say, well, let's also be publishers and put out all this information. Let's have good documentation. Let's have a culture change where, like, what if the CEO said, you know what? No NDAs, we got stung a few times with like all this patent stuff. And like, I was like, we're just going to like go all the way, innovation all the way. And not wait. And not just be like, hey, like we're, the joke on Hacker News is like, oh, it's a law firm with a couple engineers. So,
I think that's like there's like 3 questions. Like you were like, what's your questions? And I was like, well, here's my 4 questions. And I think the 2 that are important is 1, if they're a wholly owned subsidiary and they're not profitable.
How long do they get?
How long do they get? Because there is a deadline.
And will we know to do it? Can the community, will the community know?
Yeah, because what happens is that like this occurs, companies get acquired, and then they usually take the really good talent and it kind of gets pulled into different departments. Like, you're pulled into another department to do projects, and the original core is basically pulled apart.
Well, UMaine got acquired by HP, and they had like the main dude like selling printers at like CES or something like that. I know that it's not that bad, but it is kind of, it's like, hi. But
if you acquire, you want to acquire.
Yeah, but
nobody wants to acquire debt. You want to acquire something.
Well, they got a talent, but it is interesting because it's like, the UMaine demo is cool. This guy's like, and then it'll go on your hand. All that's cool. And then selling HP services like that, it sounds different. So I think like that's a little bit. Sometimes it's hard because the people that are there, they have to stay there, so they're like jammed in other parts of.
So if you have a community, more than just customers, I think Arduino has a community. And I think that's the challenge: is that they have transitioned somewhat from community to customers, but they still have they still have a big community. And so what happens when the look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll become like unbelievably profitable and be a huge profit center for Qualcomm. But like that's not really what Qualcomm's business is.
Yeah.
So how do they determine success?
It's not going to make a dent in Qualcomm's bottom line, but they probably they need a developer strategy.
Yeah. So like what is success for them in development, which we don't know, right? Like we don't actually like Qualcomm hasn't actually really.
Well, right.
They just said like synergy, right?
Well, right now they probably have like they're tied in the Salesforce, and they're like, well, we had this many webinar signups, and now we have an email address, and there's a lifetime customer acquisition cost. But like we want to get the decision makers inside the organization, so they buy a Dragon Wing.
And second is. Who's going to be doing this technical support? Because like Qualcomm is famous for not doing technical support for people.
Yeah.
So like if you buy this new keyboard, you know, like they're like, oh, it's mainline Debian. And it's like, okay, but that's like never true, right? Like there's never like, oh, it's mainline and we're done. There's always, you know, device drivers and things change with the kernel and this got deprecated that you were using and it no longer like something needs to be updated and who's going to be doing that work? Because there is a lot of work that comes with supporting a product and helping people use it. Is that Arduino going to be doing it? Is Arduino now going to still expect the community of developers to like help each other? Like there's you know, I remember when like Raspberry Pi came out and like every company came to us and was like, we need a Raspberry Pi killer. Just like people came to us and was like, we need an Arduino killer. And I'm like, who's going to do this work?
And
and it's always like we just thought the community would do it.
Yeah, that's right.
And like they don't because they're not interested.
My issue is that Qualcomm and Arduino had a lot of time, months and months and months, to figure out all the intellectual property issues with code and libraries. We're gonna be like taking a break because we're having another kid, and like during that time, I'm gonna I wanted to wrap up everything, and I'm like, hey. Lemore's name was removed off code. It's in this thing. There's this Russian company called iArduino. And like, it's the same deal with Arduino. And it's just like, it's a culture thing. Maybe Qualcomm will change them a little bit. Which is like, you can't get help from Arduino. Like, that's also a problem. What's the term? Like, there's personalities that have been difficult for us long term because we eventually were competition. We're friends and we're competition. So like, having our stuff added to the IDE, sometimes it was the case, sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it was SparkFun, sometimes we had to give money. Yeah. So Arduino owed us money from when we made Arduino. So we said, okay, put us in the IDE. There's so many things that went into like trying to just participate with a decision process that was always unclear.
Look, in the last like, you know, whatever, in the last 5 to 10 years, like Arduino has become there's less cooperation with the community and it's become more antagonistic. I think that's fair for me to say. It's not just me. Like there is more like, well, your competition, Espressif is competition. Well, like Raspberry Pi is competition. Like it's like you guys owe Arduino what have you done for us? And it's like, well,
we also have behind the scenes context because like we've known them for a very long time. Yeah. And I do think that like there was a huge amount of open source that was obviously worth $54 million because they didn't buy this AI board. They didn't buy the Q board years ago. Like the investors didn't think, oh, let's have a Q board like years ago. They're just like, you know, we're investing in Arduino because we think it's going to go somewhere and this like open source idea and this thing. So it was worth some amount of money and it's at least $54 million. Someone thinks it was. So then Qualcomm obviously thought it was too. There's value there. So like, yay, good news. Everything you're working on is valuable. Everything we're all working on is valuable. But that value transfer and where it goes and how they're maintaining and what they're doing and how they're going to continue to give back so they have this ecosystem, completely unknown, most likely not going to work out. But there's a lot of people willing to help. So I think if we talk about this, like I'm not going to be, you know, a Debbie Downer and be like, it's all over, it sucks. They could do quite a bit. Anyone right now, so the bar is so low.
Well, I think they did
do a better job.
They did show what needs to be. You know, what is the requirement now for support? I think what's going to be interesting is like, you know, even though Qualcomm was like, well, and Arduino like, well, no, we're still going to work with silicon vendors. I don't think silicon vendors are going to want. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think a silicon vendor is going to be like, hey, I want to help I want to give money to
well,
my
Tesla
competitor.
was like, here, our chargers are everywhere. Use them. You never know. There's something, right?
But they have one of network effects. I don't think there's network effects with
There's
Arduino.
something. Yeah, there's something. So, anyways, cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
Oops, I had my mic off.
That's okay. Well, you. It's rude.
Yeah, right.
You were talking about.
So, I do think that Arduino needs to work on their communications with the community. All the open source companies and people, like it or not, Arduino, you're stuck with this community you're dragging in. Like, you're stuck with, I'm kind of done with the story, but you're stuck with a lot of people who are like, hey, my contributions are in there. Like, what direction is going? Because I didn't expect Qualcomm to own you now. Yeah. So I just think more communication, and you probably need to have someone in the community. Ask Massimo if he's up for it. He's been at conferences. You can see his input about his ideas about open source, which I think he's kind of burnt from it. So you're probably gonna have to find someone who wants to like be knee deep in open source and be like, this is great. Like,
or they make the decision to split, and because like Qualcomm's not open source, so like.
Who knows? Maybe this could be the most transformative thing. Probably not.
I mean, the deal's done. Look, congratulations to founders.
Well, it's still subject to regulatory approval.
I don't think that's gonna.
That's what it says in my article.
Yeah, I know, of course. Yeah. It's never done until it's done. Look, the founders want an exit. They got an exit.
Maybe. That's the thing. So we don't have any funding. We don't have any loans, and we've tried to be at least profitable even during this time. So please use the code Qualcomm.
Right.
You can't forget it.
We do not have $54 million in funding.
We don't. And we've always, so here's the thing, because it's probably published somewhere. So I think we've always made more revenue than Arduino. I'm pretty sure, like always. Likely.
I mean, we have a much larger
we have more
collection of products. Yeah.
And which is scary. Yeah, some people are like, whoa, I can't believe it. So it's it's tens of millions of dollars. And there was a time where Arduino wasn't doing that great, and where everyone was trying to figure out, like, maybe there was going to be a merger, maybe there's things. And so I feel like the spotlight will be put on us, and we have to continue to be good leaders, because I don't think any of this is ours. It's entrusted in us for a very brief period of time. Yeah. So Arduino, you got to carry the torch for a while. I hope it worked out for you. I hope all the founders got whatever they wanted. I hope you don't run into Musto at Lake Como too much. And I think that the things that are really important to some of us, we're going to carry, and some of the things that we don't, we're going to let go. And like, I have an old article, why Arduino won, why it's here to stay. Still, anything that's Arduino-like is going to move forward. So like non-proprietary, non-NDA dev boards, and like code like Python that you could just go fast. Like, that's the speed now. It's like it's like you just want to iterate fast.
Maybe they'll get Qualcomm to dump a bunch of resources into stuff like MicroPython and Arduino IDE. That would be the best possible.
Well, the other thing is like, okay, you could on like day one say, here's the community grants we're doing. MicroPython, here's money. Here's like all the open source. You can look at on what Arduino is built on. Lots of open source.
Yeah.
This is a nice time to give to the community. I know they've done stuff like this in the past. I do think they should have an open source person. And like the metrics of success for the community should be like, do you make more open source hardware than you did last year? The end. That is a metric.
Yeah.
And so I think all the things are there to see how this works out. Guess what? We're going to be around. We're going to check back, and you're going to see all the things that we asked about. Did they happen? All the things like, why are we talking about this? Because like, we've been in this for so long. Most of my life now is Lamore coding by yourself and nice hunched over, and I'm hearing gadonk, gadonk. And that's when like we were writing all these Arduino libraries to have folks able to use this stuff, because it's really hard. So anyways, that's our show. We'll see everybody later. I don't think it's time to do like a Backstreet Boys sing along, so sad to say goodbye. I don't think it's time for that yet.
No.
But I do think it's time to say this has been Adafruit production. We'll see everybody later. Here's your moment of Zener.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.